chapter 5. I don't need one. I've got this Mishnah. They need it in the back. Let's begin. Chapter 5. We're up to chapter 5. I believe in the counting that we're using, it's Mishnah 11. Okay? Today's lunch and learn class is dedicated for the Refuah Shlema of the best mom, Shifra Bat Frecha, by her daughter Peggy Dahan. Be'ezrat Hashem, we should be zochet to hear only about good news and a complete refuah bekarov mamash. Arba midot bedeot. There are 4 categories, 4 characteristics or traits bedeot in the realm or in the world of a person's thoughts. The word deot means thoughts, but over here it's being used to mean the way a person lives their life. Okay, Rambam writes Hilchot Deot. Over there, he's telling you what is the outlook that a person has in their life. How do they run? How do they operate in their day to day? So there are 4 midot, 4 characteristics in people's outlooks and in the way they lead their lives. Noach lichos v'noach leratzot. A person can become, they're easy to anger. So the wrong thing, the wind's blowing the wrong way, chalas, they lose their mind. Everybody knows people like this. You know, the table, you told them to set the table like this. I told you to use the other cups. This is it. So, noach lichos, person gets angry at a drop of a hat. V'noach lirtzot. And that same person, one of the characteristics is a person gets angry very quickly, but also forgives very quickly. Okay? This, by the way, is every Israeli taxi driver. They get angry at you immediately, and then in 1 second, they're your best friend, they're helping you carry your stuff up, don't worry about it. It's a type. It's a passionate style. And you know what? As quickly as they got angry, that's how quickly they forgave you, and they're your best friend. Noach lichos, noach liritzot. Yatzas charo behefsedo. The Mishnah says, on such a person, the sachar, the reward, it goes out. He's lost his reward, his gain, by his loss. Behefsedo. Why? Because it's true. You're easy to placate. You're easy to get over things, but also you're easy to fall into things. So it's kind of like a person, the way I describe it, is a person who's walking along the road and he's wearing very heavy sunglasses. You can barely see where he's going, but it's very stylish, right? So it's getting a little dark, he doesn't want to take off his sunglasses, the guy falls into a pit. Right? So imagine you take the guy out, climbs out very quickly, barely dirtied his pants. If he doesn't take off his sunglasses, he's just going to fall in again, right? So this guy, yatzas scharo behefsedo, because his whatever he gains in not bearing a grudge, he loses, because even if he's not angry with you, he's just going to be angry with someone else. It's going to 2 seconds, he'll be angry at another person. He lives perpetually in a state of being upset, of being angry, of being negative. The second type of a person is the exact opposite. Kash'eh lichos. You know what? Nothing bothers them. They're just kind of placid all the time. They don't get upset. They don't lose their temper. They don't yell. They don't scream. But ooh, Lee, if you ever get that guy angry, forget it. You know what? Because he never gets angry. If he gets angry, it's usually because, there's a good reason to. That person, sometimes you have a person who's kash'eh lichos, he doesn't get angry. But when he gets angry, he never, ever, 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 ever forgets it. Kash'eh liratzot. Says the Mishnah, yatsa hefsedo b'sicharo. What he loses, okay? What he loses in terms of not getting angry until a very long time, he makes up for it in the fact that he's also kashe lechos. Okay, so the reward is greater than the punishment in that scenario, because you know what, he might be upset sometimes, but it doesn't happen often enough. So he will be relatively he'll lead a pretty decent life if he has that. Kashe lichos v'noach liratzot. The ideal thing that we would love to be is kashe lichos. It's very difficult to get me angry. V'noach l'retzot, but it's very easy to placate me if you did get me angry. That's a person who, both in terms of the getting angry and in terms of losing his anger, that person is called chassid. And we'll see exactly, just like we saw last week, why is this person called chassid, okay? He's a pious person. And finally, the last one is noach lichos, a person, it's very easy to get him angry, v'kasher l'retzot. And he's very difficult to placate. That person is rasha. That's the worst. The worst is the person. I remember playing, basketball. There's guys that never call fouls. You could slap them when you're trying to get a rebound. You could push them when you're trying to jostle underneath the basket. They never call a foul. Never. Okay? They're always just here to play the game. Just want to have fun. No problem. Okay, a guy like that, you also don't call fouls on him. Because you know what? He's not calling fouls on anybody else. You know who the most annoying person on the court is? The person who's fouling everybody, but the second you touch him like this, he's screaming bloody murder. That's the rasha. Why? Not just because he's easily injured, not just because he's hurting other people, but most of all, it's because he's being disingenuous. It's not fair. There's no balance between the two sides of you. Like, at least the other guy, it's easy to get angry, but he's also easy to make up with. Or the person who's hard to make up with, it's also hard to get him angry, right? You, on the other hand, noach lichos, you get angry very easily. V'kasher l'retzot, it's very difficult to make up with you. Where do we find an example in our chachamim of a person that was very difficult to get angry? Who's the poster child for this? Hillel, excellent Leah. Hillel is brought as the poster child for a person who doesn't just get angry easily. In fact, so much so that there were people who took bets on whether or not they could get Hillel angry. You have to be pretty good that people are literally betting on whether or not they can make you lose your temper. So one guy makes a bet, 400 coins. What's the bet? The bet is he can make Hillel angry. He comes Erev Shabbat. He waits till Hillel's in the shower. Okay? I have a friend, sometimes he comes over Erev Shabbat. Without fail, if I take a shower early, he comes early. If I take a shower late, he comes late. Always, my kids are banging on the door of the bathroom. He's here! Sometimes I fake go into the shower just because I think maybe I could kind of make it happen. All right? Now, my friends, Hillel gets in the bath. The guy comes outside. He says, tell me, how come the people in this certain country, how come they have flat heads? Why are you asking me this Erev Shabbat? It's going to be Shabbat in a few minutes. Ask me on Shabbat. Ask me after Shabbat. But right now, we have to get the candles done. We have to clean the house. It's a busy day. Shabbat and it's also a stressful day. This guy chose a stressful time. He waited till Hillel was already in the bed. Hillel gets dressed, comes downstairs. He answers, he says, yes, it's a good question. The reason why people have the flat heads, you know why? Because they carry everything in that country on their heads. It's easier for them to be able to carry the weight, the load on their heads. Okay. Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom. He waits till Hillel gets undressed back in the bathtub again. He says, Hillel, with an arrogance. He doesn't call him Rabbi. Hillel. What emergency? What's the emergency? How come the people from a certain country, they have eyes that are slanted, pulled to the side? Why do they have slanted eyes? It was an amazing question, my son. Also, from where? What does that have to do with Erev Shabbat? He answered me, he says, the people in that country, they live right on a desert. There's constantly storms of sand. The wider the eye opens, the more problematic it is for sand or dust to get into the eye, which is one of the most sensitive parts of the human body. So Hashem created the people that live in that area with eyes that are more narrow so that they should be able to see and not have as many problems with the sand. Great question. Again, each time ask him another stupid question, ridiculous question, nothing to do with anything. Waits till he gets it. He doesn't ask him in one shot until finally he loses his temper, the man, ironically. He bet that Hillel would lose his temper. He loses his temper. He says, look, you cost me 400 zuz. 400 zuz, I call. What are you talking about? Let me tell you about my bet, he says. He says, that's what you bet? Better you should lose another 400 zuz. Then Hillel should lose his temper. Hillel is a person that he's not noach lichos. It's not easy to get him angry. The ger, the convert, comes to Shammai and says, teach me everything you know, all the Torah. You spent your whole life learning. Teach it all to me. I'm standing here on one leg. What would you tell such a guy? That's what you think of my profession? There was some girls here the other day on Shabbat. They said that they're studying they're in college to be PAs. I said, wow, I didn't know they have colleges to be a secretary. They're like, no. I was like, I'm just joking. My daughter also wants to go be a PA, right? I said, it's just very unfortunate initials. You know, they could have called, instead of physician's assistant, or now it's actually known as a physician's associate, they could have called it a doctor's associate. Now that's also a profession. DA is also a profession, but at least it's on equal par, right, with the profession that they have. I don't know, it's very unfortunate they chose those specific initials, right? Imagine someone comes to you, you're studying for 5 years, 4 years, 5 years, residency. Oh, you know what? I think I want to become a doctor. You know, you have a few minutes? Could you teach me? What a chutzpah. He comes to Shammai and says, teach me all the Torah on one leg. Shammai shoves him away with it. What would any of us would do? Goes to Hillel. What does Hillel say? Well, let me teach you. You know, what you hate, don't do to others. The basis of the mitzvah, v'ahavta l'recha kamocha, that's what it is. Everything else, you go out, learn it, you'll be able to understand. Idach pirusha zil gemor. Hillel, you can't get him angry. He's unflappable. Even when he finds out that the whole point of this charade, by the way, was only to get him angry. That they bet money on Erev Shabbat. This is what you have to do to me? He finds out about the bet. Even that doesn't make him lose his temper. He says, look, you should lose, God bless you. You should lose another 400 zuz. But, better that than me getting angry. My friends, I want to point out something that I think is really interesting. If we turn back to the Mishnah that we said before, it's very interesting to note the words that are being used here. Last Mishnah, if you remember, what did we speak about? We spoke about a person deciding what is his versus what is someone else's. Sheli, sheli, shelach, shelach, sheli, shelach, shelach, sheli. Beautiful, right? We talked about a person's understanding of the world, that everything is his or everything is not his, right? The two poles of understanding. The world exists for me, or I exist for the world, okay? Fascinating to note. It doesn't say, and you're going to like this, remember from last week, you're going to like this, ready? Arba midot, it doesn't say 4 levels of giving tzedakah. Remember last week you said the Mishnah is not about tzedakah? Remember? It doesn't say arba midot bat tzedakah. What does it say? Arba midot be'adam. There are 4 character traits in a human. Really? I can think of many elements or aspects or facets to human characteristics. Why is it defining the be-all and end-all of Adam as how they relate to that which is mine versus that which isn't mine? Look over here. It doesn't say there's 4 types of anger. It says arba midot badeot, in the way a person thinks, in the way a person has an outlook. The next Mishnah we're going to see, arba midot betalmidim. Okay? Each one of these is not describing 4 elements of this specific chapter or this specific study. It's giving a much broader perspective. And I think that in and of itself is incredibly instructive. And let me explain. We've discussed this many times. Remember the Mishnah, ironically, that Hillel taught us? It's the most famous Mishnah of all the Mishnayot in Avot, probably of all the Mishnayot in all of Shas. What's the most famous Mishnah? Non-Jewish people know it as well as Jews. Nope, that's a pasuk. What? Nope. Im en anili mili. It's on buildings, non-Jewish buildings. If I am not for myself, who will be for me? What else? Ukisha'ani la'atzmi. Man, if I'm for myself, mani, what am I? Right? V'im lo achshav. If not now, when? You've seen this everywhere, right? I always like to point out one interesting thing about that Mishnah. And you actually said it. Yeah? You actually just said it. Ready? You actually just said it. את עכשיו אמרת את זה. Now, you said it very correct. You said it incorrectly, but you're making my point. וכל הכבוד לך. Ready? Ready for this? אם אין אני לי, if I am not for me, מי לי? Who is for me? וכשאני לעצמי, and when I am for myself, what should it say? מי אני? Who am I? It doesn't say that. It says, מה אני? What am I? So you said what it should say. מי אני? Who am I? Why would a human being say, if I am for myself, מה אני? What am I? And the answer is that what Hillel is teaching us is that there is no who if you live for yourself. Because the very concept of a human identity lives in the fact that it does not live for itself. We are beings, as humans, we are beings that are identified separate to the rest of the creation of the world because we are capable of thinking of another and not just of ourselves. Correct? Animals can only think of themselves. Humans have the capacity to think for, to sacrifice, to give to others. So says the Mishnah, Im en ani li mili, if I'm not for me, who's going to be for me? The buck stops here. I need to be responsible for myself. But kisha'ani la'atzmi, if I live for myself, if I'm the type of person that says sheli sheli v'shelach sheli, if I'm that person, I'm not a mili. It's not who am I, it's what am I. Because I'm not living like a human being can and should. I'm living like an animal. In which case, I have to ask, what species do I belong to if I cannot see the needs of another? So, arba midot ba'adam. There's 4 character traits that are defining character traits within the human experience. I always love this. When we talk about the treatment of animals, what do we call it? The humane treatment of animals. Why do we call it humane? Because it is the act of treating an animal, something that is under your power, your ability. You can kill it if you want. You can abandon it if you want. But if you treat it humanely, it's in a way which is unique to humans, that we can treat something of another species, of another type, with respect, with dignity, with kindness, with compassion, okay? So, arba midot ba'adam. That means that when we come, the giving and taking is all about what it means to be human. When it comes to this Mishnah, we just said arba midot ba'deot. In outlook, isn't there many, many more midot in the outlook of a human being than just about how fast you are to get angry and how fast you are to be able to get over it? It seems like there's something incredibly central about anger and forgiveness, which underscores and underlines what the nature of deot are. Now, I think this is really interesting. What we learn from the Mishnah is that these two things are not necessarily tethered to one another. It's not the case that a person who's very angry, gets angry quickly, is automatically also going to forgive quickly. Some people get angry quickly and they forgive very slowly. You know people like that? Every person in the Mishnah, you're thinking of somebody, right? Person gets angry quickly, he could get very difficult to, or a person could get angry quickly and can forgive you immediately. Or a person could get angry very slowly, kasher lichos, And you know what? And he's easy, even though, so they're not necessarily tethered. What in the human dimension underscores these two things? And this is fascinating. What is it that truly makes you or makes people angry? What is it? Why do we get angry? So let's explain that to me. Give me an example of the last time you got angry, and what was it about that thing that actually made you angry? Revisit it unless it's going to ruin your day. If it's going to ruin your day because you went to your angry place, keep the Hulk under lock and key. Anyone want to give us an example? Yeah.
If someone who's insensitive, like they say they're going to do something and then they just don't, it's supposed to be disrespectful, but they don't.
So they said they were going to do something. What example? What did they say they're going to do?
I don't know. This is like a person who does this repetitively. So one thing, for example, that they're going to buy something that you needed or pick something up, whatever it is.
They're going to buy something you need, they're going to pick it up, and they don't pick it up. So a casual observer might say to you, why are you getting so upset? Like, you wanted to go pick up a can of Diet Coke. They didn't pick up the can of Diet Coke. You're losing your mind over Diet Coke? What does everyone say? It's not about the Diet Coke. It's that they said they... I had a friend, all the time, God bless him, best of intentions. He'd call me, ask me what I needed me to pick up. He would call me and tell me he was going to go to the store and pick me up something. Oh, I really wanted to get you this thing. And then not bring it. And you get annoyed. He didn't need to tell me that, and then just don't show up, and then you fulfilled your expectations. Don't say you're going to do it. And then you know what? We have a great relationship. So actually what you're getting angry about over there in that scenario is what? Is that the person wasn't trustworthy. But why does that bother you? Because you wouldn't do the same thing. So, in effect, on some level, what you're getting angry about has nothing to do with Coke whatsoever. It's like, who does that to someone? I wouldn't do that. I don't treat people that way. I don't deserve to be treated that way. Let me hear those words again? I don't deserve to be treated that way. The kasher or the noach lichos, the difficulty, the speed with which you get angry is in direct, commensurate relationship with how you feel you should be treated. If I feel I'm supposed to be treated with honor, dignity, respect, and someone doesn't do that for me, by the way, you have people who get very angry because someone didn't stand up when they came in the room. I remember there was an elderly reverend. He wasn't a rabbi actually. He was a reverend. He walked into the room, nobody stood up. So I was standing right next to him. He looked around, saw nobody stand up. Under his breath he says, Hamorim. What does that mean? Anyone? Can someone translate? Donkeys. It was in English. In English they say a different word. I can't say in the Bet Knesset. It starts with Jack. Okay? Hamorim. And I just remember smiling. But all throughout the bar mitzvah, this guy's just sitting there, like shaking his head. Because they didn't stand up for him when he walked in. I didn't say anything. It wasn't my place. The guy's 35, 40 years older than me. But I wanted to tell him, you know why they don't stand up for you? Because you think that they're donkeys. You know why they don't respect you? Because you don't respect them. My father used to tell me all the time, you don't demand people's respect, you earn people's respect. So I take that to heart. If I'm introducing myself to someone and I don't need to say my title, I tell them, my name is Shlomo Farhi. Let them find out from my actions that I'm a rabbi. I don't have to introduce myself with my title. I'm a rabbi. Who cares? So what? Today's Tuesday. What's the difference? Not important. That's not important information. This guy, he had this expectation, so he was getting angry over something that really shouldn't have moved the needle. And the whole bar mitzvah, he's sitting there, shaking his head. Noach lichos, kashe leratzot. Hillel is unflappable. But why is Hillel unflappable? Because he's a humble person. Tell us again the story you said last week. A poor person comes to Hillel who used to be rich. And what does Hillel do for him?
He fulfilled the thing that gives him the courage, and he not giving him back the feeling of being what he was. And
Now,
not in front of him.
whose job is that normally?
It's supposed to be anybody's point job, just to make it, because this is a man who was everything.
No, I don't mean in the tzedakah case. Whose job is that in the life of a rich person? Who runs in front of the rich person saying, the rich man is coming? Slave. Hillel is prepared not just to not be a rabbi and be Shlomo Farhi, a regular guy. Hillel sees that this guy is coming in and he's asking, he needs. For Hillel, it's not important if you see him as a slave. You know why? And this is so important. Because his level of self-confidence, his level of self-awareness, his level of self-respect does not belong to anybody else. No one gets to tell him who he is. So I don't care if you think I'm a slave. That doesn't matter to me. I know who I am. So Hillel is in the bathtub. The guy comes and he's asking these ridiculous questions one after the next. Hillel doesn't lose his temper because he knows he's a rabbi in the bathtub. He's a rabbi when the guy's asking him stupid questions. And when he's the butt of a prank, what's Hillel's response? Complete equanimity. There's no blip on the screen. Doesn't affect. This is one of the most beautiful concepts. And I think that this is what the Mishna is really teaching us here. You want to know how you are in your deot, how you think? Let's look. There's one character trait that gives it away. Kas, anger. And we have a Mishnah that many of us have learned this before. The Mishnah says, Ha'adam nidon b'shlosha dvarim. A person is judged by three things. Bikiso, kaso, koso. He's judged. Two of them are, you get to see who he really is when he's drunk. I remember there was a guy who came to a singles event that we ran in London. And he had just a bit too much, and I'm being kind. And he looked around the room, and he said, Rabbi, I don't even know why I'm here. I'm so much better than all of these people. I stuck him in a cab and sent him home. But now I know why he's not with someone. Because he looks at them and says, Hamorim. Bunch of donkeys. No one here is on my level. So even if he's on a date, even if he's having a conversation, he's not real about it, because whoever he's looking at, I could do better. That's how he sees himself in every situation. Koso helps you. Ha'adam nidon. We understand the person when he's drunk, when he doesn't have the niceties of polite conversation. Oh, so nice you do what you do. He doesn't know how to hide when he's drunk. Koso. Kiso, you see what he spends his money on. A lot of people talk. I love chesed. Until you ask them to help pay for it. I love, the shul, the rabbi, Judaism, Jewish education is the most important thing to me and my family. But your kids are not in Jewish school. It's a ripoff. But you said it was the most. Yeah, but I'm not going to be suckered in. I'm already suckered into spending this money. Do you understand? I don't mind if you don't think it's worthwhile. That's okay. But don't walk in here telling me that it's the most important thing to you. And then you say it's not worth the money because It's not so. We judge you based on what you spend your money on. And it's fascinating, by the way. One of the tools that has been developed in online internet shopping, social media, is something called retargeting. Anyone familiar with what retargeting means? Retargeting is, you look at a pair of shoes, and then for a week, all you see is shoes. Half the time, the shoe that you were looking at. Other times, shoes that are similar to the shoe that you were looking at. And it's like, oh, hey, we just casually thought that you might want this. No, you didn't. You know where I clicked on. You saw. But here's where it gets interesting. There's also a hierarchy in retargeting. Just because you looked at something doesn't mean that you're a good customer. Once you buy something, that's when they know that you're a real customer to be pursued. The clicks that you will click on as a person who has purchased something in that genre is much more valuable than the fact that you looked at it. We can all look, we can all dream. But once you spend your money on it, right? That's Adam Nidon, the fee, kiso by his pocket. You see what a woman really cares about when you see what she spends her money on. Nothing drives me more crazy than hearing about the tuition crisis and how everyone has to have less children, right? Because they can't afford it, and it's impossible to send your children to school. I get it, believe in it, I'm with you. But you're also spending $100,000 on the 3 vacation on each vacation you're going on in the year. And you're driving a limited edition Mercedes-Benz convertible. Let's not talk about how expensive school is and how you needed to only have 2 kids. It's just disingenuous. Say to me, my Mercedes-Benz is more important than my children, or than me having a Jewish education for my children. Say that to me, and then I'm on board with you. But until you've shown me with your pocket what you believe in, I don't really know what you believe in. Adam nidan lefi, kiso is pocket, koso is cup. But which character trait do we check to see who you really are? Ka'aso. When someone's drunk, they're very similar to someone who's angry. Isn't that interesting? When a person loses their temper, and they just can't control what they say, it's like dealing with someone who's drunk. You could tell a drunk person, don't say this, you're not going to come off looking well, you're going to regret this in the morning. Go tell that to a drunk guy. Go tell that to an angry guy. Same thing. The irony is, you tell an angry guy something that makes sense. What does it make them? Angrier. Angrier. So when the Mishnah says, Arba Midot, it doesn't say there are 4 levels or characteristics of the angry person. It just says there are 4 characteristics in Deot. Why? Because how angry you get is in direct correlation to how important you think you are. No one. Now, listen to this. Let's say you're very humble. Does that mean you never get angry? No. No, it depends on a lot of factors, doesn't it? Let's say you have very good midot. Does it mean that you never get angry? No. I think a person who never gets angry is a person who's not actually alive. You're a yes man, you're pop culture, you're going along with the flow with everyone else's opinions. It can't be you're living in a world as diverse as the world that we live in and you never get angry. The Mishnah does not say, and one of the characteristics is a person who never gets angry. That's a chassid. No, that's a dead person in a box. It can't be that you never get angry. And by the way, it shouldn't be that you never get angry. Yes?
Okay, so I 100% understand what you're saying, but can a person, I know when I deal with little children, there are some children that get angry very, very quickly. So that is their personality. Now, I know that you can grow older and control that, but you're born with certain characteristics. And while some people are very mellow, some children are very mellow, there are some children that get very excited very, very quickly, and it's harder for them to be controlled. I think they've got a genes.
We are not talking about children, to be clear. Character traits in children manifest almost randomly. The kid doesn't even understand that the reason why they're getting angry so fast is because they're a person of tremendous passion and energy. When they become mature though, if they have not yet figured out what lane to use the ka'as in, right? Or actually, to say it more correctly, to understand where the ka'as comes from, that's when we start understanding who is this person. And it might be equal parts nurture and nature. And let's come back. We'll circle back to that in just a minute. So I'm in complete agreement with you. When it comes to kids, there's no judgment at all. I remember I was a kid, I lost my temper like that. I was a strong kid, I had a strong tongue, I knew how to put the person in their place. You know, if I needed to fight, I could fight with the best of them. You know, when I was a kid, it took time for me to work on. But the energy you see in me, in my classes, in the way I do my job, that is exactly the same stream. I'm drawing the same water from the same place. But it took time to be able to get there. When you're upset about something that's wrong, that's not the right way to do things. Can't be. This is not the right attitude. It's impossible. I got upset. You get upset. You're supposed to get upset. You see a miscarriage of justice, and you just sit there like this. What do we say? All that it takes for evil to succeed is for good people to stand by and do nothing. When you stand by and did nothing, you're like patting yourself on the back. Oh, look at how hard it is to get me angry. Well, the Germans that didn't do anything. Look at how hard it is to get me upset. You know, I watched people be taken to their deaths. Didn't even bother me. Still ate cereal. That's a wicked person. If that doesn't get you mad, you're psychotic. Okay? So I want to come back. We'll circle back to this in just a minute. Yes, in a comment.
She spoke about children. A child, from childhood, the father is an example. If he grew up with a father who's angry and nasty, the poor child is going to pick up from his father.
Not necessarily.
Yes, they are.
Not necessarily. Not necessarily. I know many people who are the children of very angry parents who it hurt them so badly that they literally go the exact opposite way. And sometimes, by the way, it's interesting. Sometimes that makes them great people. Sometimes they get angry just like their parents. When you're a child of abusive parents, the kid has a choice. They can abuse their own children, or they could be so protective and they could be so the opposite that they never want, and they can't. Sometimes it goes to a point where it's not healthy, where they won't criticize their kid. They won't say anything to the child. They won't place boundaries on the kid because they had such a negative experience. So the full range is possible. What it almost never is vanilla. They're almost never middle of the road. Parents, children of extreme abusers or angry parents either become incredibly mellow or become angry themselves, but generally they're not like, you know, kasher lechos, kasher leratzot. Noach lechos, no. Usually they kind of, the pendulum swings either one full way or the other way. But you're absolutely right. You're talking about the nature of nurture. You have a kid.
That example for the children, how they live at home from childhood, if they have good, normal mom and dad, speaking nice to each other, respecting each other, they grow up to be respecting everybody and their wife and their husband. I think so. Because I know from my email about myself.
Absolutely.
My mother used to choose my mother. This is amazingly there.
Chinuch takes an incredible role. An incredible role in the development of children. What's interesting is that there's something called imprinting. Are you familiar with this? With ducks, with chickens, where a baby chick might imprint. The farmer might be imprinting on this chick that it thinks it's its mother. It doesn't know the whole idea, like, oh, I'm supposed to look like you. because anyway, I'm yellow and my mother is white. When you're a chicken and a chicken, it's not a conscious or logical thing. It senses that there's some being that is taking care of it, and the child can imprint, or the baby can imprint, or can become imprinted upon by an adult. You have cases of terrible parents who actually don't manage to make all that much of an imprint on their children, because the children decided at a young enough stage to imprint themselves with some other role model, like a grandparent, or like a rabbi, or like a teacher at school, right? Or like an older sister. There are people that I know who are parented more by their oldest sibling than they are by their parents. Sometimes as a function of age, sometimes as a function of not being able to relate to the parents. So having that role model, having that mechanech, is not always necessarily parents. It's most powerful when it's done right by the parents. But you're absolutely right. These 4 people, this is not only a nurture, it's also not only a nature, it's the final product after you factor all those things in. So what are we? If you had to classify yourself, which one are you? Are you quick to anger? Are you quick to forgive? And by the way, like I said earlier, they are not necessarily connected. Think of when you get angry. You get angry like, I can't believe they did that. Can't believe they said that. Terrible thing that they're doing. Get so angry. What makes you forgive? What is the secret sauce of forgiveness? Where does it come from? Sorry? Time and love. Okay? So if you're a kash'eh leratzot, that means it takes time, then that works. What if you're a noach leratzot, where it's easy, which means it's not about time? So if you're the type of person that's noach leratzot, that in 2 seconds, they're over it, you're over it. Don't worry about it. I haven't thought about it since. You ever apologize to someone and the person's like, truly, it didn't bother them at all, and like they accept your apology and it's genuine. How do they do that? Without any time. Sorry? Hillel. It didn't bother him. It didn't affect him. So in a Hillel story, he's kasher lichos. It's so hard to get him angry. And you know what? It's easy to forgive. Why? Because he never got angry in the first place. Or there's such a high threshold to get him angry. But there's other people here in the Mishnah. There's a guy who gets angry easily. But then how does he forgive easily? This is so interesting. So noach lichos means you're upset that something was done to you, or to someone that you love, or to something that you love. Right? When we get angry about something that was done to Jews, it didn't even happen to me. But I'm a Jew. And if you could do that to them, you could do that to me. And I identify with that person. So I'm really angry that you did that to my tribe, to my family, to my country. Okay? But how are you noach leratzot? I found this fascinating. How do you forgive easily? So you got angry because you feel this is not right. I can't believe this is happening. This is terrible. You should not be doing this. I'm better than this. We are better than this. We deserve, me, my people, my country. Does it not burn you up when you see what they write in the newspapers about Israel? Burns you up. By the way, the New York Times might also be getting it wrong about Azerbaijan. Those terrorists in Azerbaijan. Like Azerbaijani people are looking at the New York Times, they're like, this is the worst newspaper, right? But if you're really upset about the fact that it's a miscarriage of justice and it's not the truth, you should be equally angry about Azerbaijan. But you're not, because you're not connected to that place. And the Azerbaijani guy actually doesn't care about the negative Israel reporting that happens in the New York Times every single day, right? So the way I see it is, and I always found this so interesting, I said they're disconnected. You get angry easily because you've been affronted, and I don't deserve to be treated this way. But your noach leratzot, what makes you, forgive, is also in relation to yourself. It's in realizing that sometimes I also do that. Sometimes we forgive because we want to be forgiven. I don't mean right now. I don't mean I want to forgive you so that you will forgive me. I want to forgive you so that I can forgive myself. Like if someone who speaks this way is not to be forgiven, what happens when I speak that way? I know I do that. If I hold that you're a terrible person and I can't forgive you and it's unforgivable, but I also do that sometimes. Am I unforgivable? Sometimes we forgive because we want to be forgiven as well. Not by them, by ourselves, by Shamayim. So these two things, they come from different places, actually. One is the ego being hurt. The second one is in some way, the level of understanding. It's not in the heart, it's in the mind. Like you said, where there's an element of love where I can see, even though you hurt me, this was not your intention. You did not want to do this. Or you did not want it to come out or turn out this way. All right? I want to, if I can, yes.
I was going to say, or, that's very good, or you realize also that if you contain this hurt in you because you were hurt, then you are actually hurting yourself. And if you forgive that, or if you say, he's not worth it, and you forgive it, then you release that hurt and you no longer hurt.
Amazing. You're making an incredible point, but I need to agree with you on one side and disagree on the other. When you are forgiving someone, in order to not hold on to hurt, you are actually not forgiving them.
You're forgiving yourself.
You're just saying, I'm not holding this anymore.
Right.
It's like that woman who forgave the Nazis. And they asked her, how'd you do that? They killed your whole family. She says, I don't know what you want from my life. Like, I want to move on. I need to get married. I want to have a family. And I can't do that if I'm walking around all day, every day with this anger and resentment and pain and bitterness against them. So I'm forgiving them. But why am I forgiving them? Just because not in truth. She doesn't understand the Nazis. Yemach shemam v'zichram. She's not on the same page as them. She doesn't have any love towards them. She doesn't have any understanding of them. When we forgive, and it's great advice to forgive for ourselves. I love this line. The line goes, anger is punishing yourself for the sins of others. Someone does something to you, get angry. So now who's hurting? Who's that anger eating up? You. They did the sin, and I'm holding on to this. And it's already 2 days, 3 days later, I'm still angry. I'm walking around, ruined my breakfast. I have acid indigestion, okay? So it's smart to let it go. But letting it go, forgetting, is not the same as forgiving. You get that?
I'm not saying forgetting.
So many people's forgiveness is really more about forgetting. It's about moving on. But you don't actually love that person who killed your family. You don't actually understand them. You don't love them. You're just saying, I can't carry this box anymore. And you'd be very smart for doing that. But it's only half of the full job. Because in some cases, there should not be full forgiveness. It is not up to us to forgive that person who killed my family. It's not up to me. Like they say, forgiveness, that kind of forgiveness only belongs to God. But there's sometimes when a spouse has hurt you, when a child has hurt you, one of your children, when a dear friend has hurt you, it's not just about not holding it anymore. Because then you've lost that friendship. You need to not only get rid of the part that you're holding, but you need to also, in your heart, absolve them of their sin. The only way. It's the only way to actually get back to where you are. It's very hard. It's very hard, but it's the only way to repair what you once had. And the way to do that is not by saying what they did was okay. It's by saying it was not okay. but maybe sometimes I do things that are not okay. Maybe the motivation wasn't malicious. Maybe the stress that they were under caused them to do that. And even though I can't condone it, I can understand it. Yeah? Yeah.
Going back to the sentence that I said about Hillel, so that sentence actually caused lots of fighting once in Israel. Because with that story of Hillel with the rich person, etc., we also have in Judaism that if a person lost everything he has, the community has to upkeep him in the style he was accustomed to. And that was Hillel and this. There was once a big argument because we had in Israel in our community a couple with the right to the United States. They rented this expensive duplex, everything, big car, etc. Then he ran away and left the Raguna. So when he left the Raguna, Fred decided to make a phone call saying, let's start keeping him. You know, this one is this. I volunteered to do food shop in our city, to the house. But after a while, I said, just a second, let's stop. I know you as a kid, I know the story and everything. But there are other people who are suffering in the community. And you can't keep a person in the style that he was accustomed.
Impossible, yes.
Because we cannot and should not, I'm even saying more, should not keep her in the double duplex house,
Yep.
this huge car, in the lifestyle. Let her go get a job and let her do what other people are actually giving him. And on this way, they had a big argument about what Hillel said, you know, and it really caused lots of anger.
My rabbi said like you. My rabbi ruled like you. Hillel never meant that you hold that person there indefinitely. It's just till they catch their breath, so that they don't break. And once they catch their breath, then, we can help you sell the car and the duplex and buy a singleplex. Yeah, and they have no right. They have no right to expect. Yeah, it's a mistake. Yeah, as I said, I remember saying, I'm quoting my Rebbe, and my rabbi said, Hillel ran in front of the carriage. Once. But not more than that, So let's see if I can, I want to just try and maybe draw this Mishnah to a close. Because just on a simple level, in terms of this idea of deot, and what does this mean for all of us? The Mishnah gives us 4 points, like we spoke about last week. 4 like stars, if you will, in the corners, in this quadrant. Really difficult to get angry and really difficult to make up. Really difficult to get angry and really easy to make up. Really easy to get angry and really difficult to make up. Really easy to get angry and really easy to make up. Where do we fall in between this 4-quadrant spectrum? Where are we? And you know what I found? And I found this really interesting. It really depends. There's some people that for them, it's like a light switch. Half a line of conversation, you're already fighting. You ever notice that? And some people, you have infinite patience for. And I think a lot of people say, what do you want? Going back to this, I was born like this. I was born with this temper. Can't blame me. Other people, they're more relaxed. I'm not relaxed. I'm an excitable guy. What do you want from me? The Torah never asked you to switch off who you are. But what the Torah is asking you to do is, let's see, you 0 to 60 on getting angry? Well, are you 0 to 60 in stopping to get angry? Like, let's see, do we have some sort of equilibrium with you? Where are you? You say you have no option about not getting angry? Did you ever get angry and yell at your boss the way you yell at your kid? No. So how come you're telling me that when it comes to your kid, this is just how I am? When you need to contain it, you're capable of doing so. So this idea, like the words, I always love this. There's these words that people say all the time. You make me so angry. Nobody gets to make you anything. I read a line that I remember reading it again and again and again and again and again, because it's horrible, but also true, but also horrible, but also true. There are no victims. There are only volunteers. Horrible, but also true, but also horrible, but also true. What does that mean? What does that sentiment mean? You know? Does that mean that a person was volunteered to be abused? That's terrible to say that. That's why it's horrible. But that's not what it means. It doesn't mean that you volunteered to be abused. No. Lots of times. So in the moment, I didn't allow anything. They punched me in the face. You know, they yelled at me. They said things about my family. They said about how worthless I am, how silly I am, how I'm not cut out for the... We're not talking about in the first instance. We're talking about what happens afterwards. Because you were a victim once, doesn't mean that you were a victim or you need to remain a victim. And it's crazy to think about this. Because on the one hand, our first reaction to this is horrible. How can we say this? But you know what? You find different people relating different ways to the experiences that they had in their life. And when you see someone that is capable of rebuilding, and they're not inherently stronger, smarter, more privileged, more educated, they're the same. Why'd they climb out of that hole? So this idea, you make me so angry. No. Maybe once, like Hillel. Maybe twice. But eventually, I get to choose. I get to choose if I let you get me angry. Because you know what, that first time, I was there for you to punch me in the face. The second time, I could choose not to let you hurt me, either by protecting myself, or by making sure that I don't get hurt by what you say, or by cutting you the heck out of my life. You understand? You own, at that stage, the result of that. Now, this is not always true. When someone is suffering from battered wife syndrome, would it be accurate to say that that's a volunteer? Yes, it's true they're going back to emotional, to physical abuse, to the husband cursing them out, belittling them. Are they volunteering because they walked back in? No. At this stage, it's not in their power anymore. They need psychological help. It's called syndrome for a reason. But when we're not talking about a situation where it got to that level, don't volunteer. Don't volunteer to be around people who put you in the noach lichos column, that get you angry very easily. Either figure out how to become kasher lichos with them, or spend your time elsewhere. And if you don't have a choice, because they're woven into the fabric of your life, and you can't cut them out, well, then you have a choice to make. Do you want to leave the shul? Because there's a guy that gets you really angry in the back row? Or do you want to stay? And if you want to stay, you have to figure out a way for him not to get to you. How does somebody do that? Because I think that's really where we all need to get to. Number one, we can all understand the idea of deciding to walk away. We get that. We also understand the idea of cutting a person out, of our lives. But how do we make ourselves, when we can't cut that person out? Can I give you a perfect example? Divorced parents that need to co-parent for the rest of their life. Sometimes you can't. There's no option. You're tethered to this person through your flesh and blood. What do? Yeah.
When you're struggling with that anger that you were experiencing, it's you write it off to that's their problem. Like they're struggling with an issue, that's their problem. You don't have to absorb it. You know that they have these issues, and that doesn't have to be yours. So you can move away from it. Not put it on yourself.
So let's
You're not equal.
let's encapsulate that. Kasher lichos means you're getting me angry, you're saying these things, you're doing these things. That's you. They are happening around me, and I'm choosing my words carefully. They are not happening to me. I just want to be, again, very, very clear. Imagine you could look at a person the same way you looked at a thunderstorm. It starts raining all over you. Now, of course, everyone gets a little upset you're getting rain. Are you angry at the rain? Right? Are you setting fire to the rain? Is that what you're doing? Are you yelling? Are you raging against the rain? No. Because you understand that on some level, the rain doesn't have a choice to do this to you. The rain is just doing its thing. Some people don't have a choice. That's just how they are. Now, could they change? Yes, they could. But as they are, without a motivation to change, without a role model, without an impetus, without the courage to change, they are like the rain. So this is not happening to me. It's not raining on me. It's just raining. They are not being horrible to me. They are just horrible. Can you appreciate that? Sometimes we can build ourselves tools to become kasher lichos. We can build ourselves tools to become noach liratzot. I'm going to give you one example of noach liratzot, and we'll end with this. Noach liratzot means it's easy liratzot, to become placated, to give in, to forgive, to get back to yourself. How does someone build this? So the Gemara tells us a story. It's brought down in the Shiltot de Rabbi Achai about a certain worker who was working for his very wealthy boss for 3 years. And he hasn't been home to see his wife and kids. He's very poor. It's time for him to take his money home and go and give it to the wife and children that he left in order to be able to support. It's right before the holiday. He knows his family needs this money now. And he comes to the boss and he says, "Please, can you pay me?" And this fabulously wealthy man says, "I'm really sorry, I have no money." You have no money. Okay, so then give me animals, livestock. He says, "I'm sorry, I have no livestock." He says, "Okay, so you can't give me animals. Give me pillows, blankets. Give me some things, household items. I can sell them and use that instead to pay. Give me a field. Give me a piece of real estate." "I'm sorry, I don't have real estate." The man says, "Okay." Packs up his bags, he's upset, he goes home. After the holiday, the rich man comes and he gives this man, his worker, a tremendous amount of wealth. And he says, "When I told you I had no money and you knew how wealthy I was, what did you think?" And the worker said, "I figured you had no money because all of your money was tied up in certain deals, so you were cash poor. And when I told you I had no animals, why did you think?" "Well, I thought maybe you'd, in a moment of inspiration, you'd dedicated the animals to the Beit HaMikdash for korbanot. So you couldn't give them to me, they didn't belong to you. And when I told you I didn't have any goods, I thought maybe, he said, that you had declared all of the objects in your house. You donated them to Hekdesh, to the poor, to the Bet HaMikdash, to charity. And when I told you, and everything the guy said, he gave another example as to what it was that had happened, which precluded his boss from paying him. The boss says to him, Chai Amonai, I swear by God's name, everything that you said was exactly how it happened. And the Gemara relates what this Baal Habayit, what had happened to him, and how he got in this unique and strange position. The master was one of the great Tanaim. And the worker was none other than Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Akiva said to himself, the way my rabbi explained it, he said, this guy's a good guy. Who would take a worker that he knows is poor, he knows is traveling home to his family right before the holiday? Who would tell them they have no money? Who would do that? This guy's a good guy. Well, he would never do that. There has to be another explanation. So he judged him favorably. And the rabbi blessed Rabbi Akiva and he said, just as you have judged me favorably in Shamayim, they should judge you favorably as well. And I thought to myself, this is really the concept of Noach Leratzot. Easy to become, to forgive. It's when you look at a person and you say, again, if they're Hitler, they're doing it maliciously. They're Rasha Merusha, they're only doing it in order to hurt you. No mitzvah to make up fantasy stories and be naive about a person who's a wicked person. But when a person's a good person, and aren't most of our friends and our acquaintances, aren't they good people? And they've done something, and it's really nasty. You don't know what they're going through. So try and imagine, we learn from this Shiltot Rabbi Achai, that Rabbi Akiva, he didn't just say, he probably has a reason. He gave each reason a story, clothing. The money was for this reason, the animals were for this reason. He had to sell it to himself. Think to yourself, what could possibly be making this person do it, which paints them not in an amazing light, but in a better light than they are being painted right now. So sometimes things are wrong, but they are understandable. Noach Leratzot means trying to get to that stage. I don't agree with the way they handled it. It was wrong the way that they did it. But let's cut the person a little slack, little. They just lost their business. They just lost their relationship. They just lost their parent, their father. They're acting in a way which is irrational. They feel like the need to protect their fortune. They feel like the need to protect their reputation. The person is vulnerable right now. I can understand how that would happen. So kasher lichos means literally placing all of it in the other person's realm and saying, this is not happening to me. This is their jam. Noach Leratzot says, what is going on in their story, in their life, that makes this not maybe a mitzvah, not maybe the best way, but a little bit more acceptable or understandable. And through that process, a person actually walks around with a much lighter load in their day-to-day. There are 1 million studies that show that angry people live shorter lives. Not only less time, but less quality. It's documented. Go look it up. You find yourself getting angry all the time, figure out how to cut it out. Move. Don't be with that person. Work on yourself. Understand that person is not doing it to you. They just are a horrible person. Okay? Whatever you need to do. But it is not an option to be living in the quadrant of Noach Lichos, easy to get angry, and Kasher Leratzot, difficult to forgive. It's just not an option. That's not a life. Hashem should bless us to be strong. God bless.